Game week 2 is nearly upon us, and I didn't want to have to make decisions like this early, so let's get into the team selection video for game week 2. So after a really tough week where I scored 39 points, and a part of that is pretty much not owning Reinders and going with Marmoush to start with in game week 1. He was my risky player and it just did not pay off. But anyway, starting with the goalkeeper and the defence, they pretty much picked themselves this week, I think. The only little decision I felt I had to make was Verbruggen and Jose Sarr. Verbruggen away at Everton, Jose Sarr away at Bournemouth. For me, the way the Everton attack played against Leeds, I'm happy to go with Verbruggen again this week over Jose Sarr away at Bournemouth, with that Bournemouth attack looking pretty good against Liverpool. Next week, I think it will be a rotation as Jose Sarr has Everton and Verbruggen is playing Manchester City. So I think it will be a rotation next week, but it's back-to-back starts for Verbruggen in my team. Then moving on to the defence, and we've got Marc Cucurella, who will be playing most weeks, obviously, but a nice away fixture at West Ham. Now, West Ham really did disappoint against Sunderland, conceding 3 goals and not scoring themselves. So I fancy Cucurella to get a clean sheet in this one. So it's difficult going away to a London rival. But the other upside with Cucurella, he had fantastic expected goals and assists, really, for a defender in the last game against Crystal Palace in that 0-0. Just over 10 in each category, goals and assists expected. So he's a nailed-on starter for me. We're going to go with Nico Williams again. His clean sheet ruined by a penalty from Brentford and Thiago, unfortunately, last week. So it's another bit of unfortunate incidences taking away the clean sheet there. But yeah, I don't expect the clean sheet against Crystal Palace. I don't think it will be a tough one, and it is counteracting against some of the players I do have. But obviously, looking at my next pick, I'd almost be happy with a 0-0 in this circumstance. But Richards is in the first team this time instead of on the bench, and it's Wan-Bissaka who drops from the starting lineup to the bench as he has that Chelsea fixture, where Richards he didn't actually hit the DEFCON points where we thought he'd be one of those DEFCON monsters alongside Lacroix. But he is 0.5 cheaper for a reason. He's probably not going to hit those DEFCON points quite as frequently as Lacroix, if I'm saying that correctly. But Forest at home, the Forest attack was disappointing in pre-season, but it was fantastic against Brentford. So it remains to be seen what happens at Selhurst Park. But I've got to fancy Richards, and he's certainly a player I wanted to play most weeks, and this is my first choice defence, I think, most weeks, dependent on fixtures. So Wan-Bissaka dropping to the bench also, and Joe Rodon firmly in the last slot of my bench, simply because of the Arsenal away fixture. Certainly not a game I want to be playing him in, although he would have got me 6 points if I started him last week. I left 18 points on my bench last week, and one of them was Richards away at Chelsea. The other was Rodon. But we have to move on, and game week 2 is around the corner, so let's get on to the midfield. So the midfield is where some real tough decisions had to be made, and it's still going to have to be made. They haven't been finalised just yet. But the obvious one, starting with Morgan Rogers, wasn't fantastic against Newcastle in the 0-0 draw. But away at Brentford this week, I think is a fantastic opportunity for him to get off the mark. Brentford shipping those 3 goals against Nottingham Forest on the opening day. Obviously, home comforts this week for Brentford, but they do look shaky, and there is potential that they are really going to struggle this season. And against their Aston Villa attack, who's going to want to put the opening day ball draw to right, and they're going to want to come out the traps flying, I feel, in this game. So he was obviously a definite starter. Talking about definite starters, we've got Mo Salah up next. away at Newcastle. So it is a tough fixture, especially with everything going on. I think it's going to be an incredible atmosphere at St James's Park with the whole Isaac situation. But that can be the sort of game that can fire up Salah. And he did really well there last year in the 3-3 draw, I think it was. He played fantastic, so he knows how to find the net, especially at St James's Park in a fiery contest. Then I'm going to skip Marmoush just for now. Ilman and Dye. Now, this is somebody that I want to monitor going forward. As I spoke about before, the Everton attack didn't look too impressive. But they've got their home game, the first home game in the Premier League at the new stadium. So they're going to want to impress, and they're going to want to put on a show for their fans. So, and I think he is the one real flair player for Everton. So I think it's going to be up to him as long as he's still on penalties, which he should be. He's absolutely fine to start now. It's going to be Brighton. Yes, it goes against Verbruggen, but I think he can do well. It's just whether that attack can really glue. That is my worry, and that's why it's a monitor going forward. Then going on to monitors, and even worse than that probably, as Omar Marmoush, my big problem player from last week. At the moment I've got him in the starting lineup. I have got potential to swap him out for Anderson on the bench away at Crystal Palace. I feel like he'll hit those DEFCON points again. No, actually he missed them last week, he got the assist. But Anderson, I think he'll be due in an away game where he'll have to work hard against a good Crystal Palace team. He will be due those DEFCON points, I think. So that's one way around the Marmoush issue. The other way is just play him and hope he plays against Tottenham, which with Pep Roulette, it wouldn't surprise me. There's my two options. I'll explain my last option, which could be my more likely ones, at the end of the video with my transfer plans. We could just ship him out, and I am looking more favourably upon that, even though I didn't want to use up transfers this early. So in attack, we have Jean-Philippe Mateta up first. Nottingham Forest at home at Selhurst Park. I feel like this is the game where you can get off the mark. Again, it's once again going against my defence. It's just the way it's fallen for me this week, unfortunately. It was always going to be a tough week to navigate with the team I built, but there is potential for points if the game goes one way or the other. Maybe the clean sheets, maybe the goal. We've got to keep our fingers crossed in that occasion. Mateta, again with Eze going, I am a bit worried there that he'll become have less of an impact in games. But you've also got to look at it that he's got to take on the mantle now. He's got to be the main man at Crystal Palace, and he'll certainly be on penalties with Eze gone. So as long as he can use Eze going as fuel to fire him up, I think this will be the good test this weekend with Eze undoubtedly not in the team. And we can see what he can do. I feel confident with him. Let's see. I was confident last week and not a lot went my way. So we know how FPL can turn out. Then my other striker is Ollie Watkins, and I've also put the captain's armband for now on Ollie Watkins, and it's probably the way it's going to stay. A lot of people, even with Newcastle away, will probably go Salah, but I feel Ollie Watkins against that Brentford team that shipped all those goals on the opening day. It's also his former club. I just feel him going there, and like I said, Villa wanting to prove a point. I think he's a little under the radar differential captain for the week. And I feel like I need to take a risk after a poor start. That could compound the poor start and make things even worse. But at this stage, I think that risk's pretty valid. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's that big a risk at all, because I really feel he'll do well in this fixture. Yeah. So let's move on to João Pedro then. And West Ham away. Now, a lot of people have, I think, panic transferred João Pedro out, where I don't believe that's the right decision. We've got João Pedro in our teams for those opening game weeks, as they have some decent fixtures in the first 8 games or so. Sprinkled in with some difficult ones, no doubt. But I think people get obviously panicked as well with him coming off early, which again, we all knew was going to happen. We knew he was probably going to be a 70-75 minute man with Delap available on the bench, especially when a Chelsea team needs to go out and get a goal to win the game. But I think we were all of the belief in pre-season that 70 minutes is enough for João Pedro to do the damage. We maybe have to monitor him, because if things, he could blank in this game quite easily, come off early again, and then you're just going to see more transfers out, and his price is going to start to plummet, kind of like Marmoush's did, and down to 8.4. So obviously one to monitor, but this week is not the week to be getting rid of João Pedro. And it's a forward line in all I am pretty confident with, I think. Yeah, so let me talk about the one transfer I could potentially have in mind. And this week it's going to be the Marmoush one, like I was talking about, and I am looking at Antoine Semenyo and bringing him in, who has actually had a price increase, which is hard to swallow. You lose 0.1 on a player, and then you have to pay 0.1 more than a lot of people did at the start of the season, or everybody did at the start of the season. So it's a bit of a pill to swallow, but I would be jumping off Marmoush probably before he drops in price again next week. My other option was bringing in Reinders, but it's one I want to make. I'd want to make next week, maybe for Njai. I've got my eye on that, and it's a sort of transfer I would make early to avoid that 0.1 increase again, which I feel Reinders will do. Yeah, I feel he will increase again next week. But Semenyo at home to Wolves, who shipped 4 goals against Man City, a good Man City team at that. But Semenyo with fantastic expected goals stats and against Liverpool, and he was fantastic in that game. And a player I think, I've picked him at different points in the last 2 seasons, and I absolutely love him. I think we all overlooked him because it was Liverpool away on the first day. And I'd be more than happy to bring him in this week and try and target that Wolves fixture. Not only that, they have a great run of fixtures coming up in the upcoming weeks as well. So that would be my likely transfer. Other option, obviously, to roll the transfer, which is what I always wanted to do, but I have got that big problem player in Marmoush. Like I said before, third option, rotating with Anderson and make 2 transfers next week, get more information. I'd probably go with that before starting Marmoush and not making the transfer. I think I prefer to bring Anderson in the more I think about it. But the way I'm more edging, probably 60-70% to making that transfer happen. So that's my team for game week 2. I hope you liked it. And if you did, hit the like button. It would be really appreciated. Also, hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps the channel more than you know. Otherwise, good luck going into the game week 2, everybody. Hopefully mine's going to be a little bit better than game week 1, and we can start to climb that leaderboard and get that ranking number down. So see you in the next video, guys.